now.
This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Spartan 117. Welcome to Quality Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. Anthony and Skylar will take it from here. Master Chief, out.
Hello and welcome to Koalatea Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. I'm Skylar Sokol.
And I am Anthony Nicolosi.
And today we have a very special guest, Alex from People Can Fly Studios. How are you doing?
Hello, hello.
Hey, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Alex Bing, you might add.
That's true. I was trying to obfuscate his personal information, but Anthony is going to be giving away his social security number at the end of the podcast, so look forward to that.
People are going to hear this podcast and be like, wow, that animator sounds fucking awesome. If I had him on my studio, I'd pay him twice whatever the other people
It's true. We're getting you a job. That's the main purpose.
We're trying to help.
Yeah. So anyway, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what your job is at People Can Fly, what you're doing, and maybe what you've done before as well?
Sure. Yeah, that works. I recently started, as in this year, at People Can Fly New York. It's their American, or one of their American branches. So working on a yet unannounced thing. Big ol' NDAs there. But I've been an animator for about 5 years now. Started in mobile games, moved to a kind of like a contract animation powerhouse studio where I worked on Dauntless for basically 3 years for Phoenix Labs. We would just send off animations to them before where I am now. It's kind of the bulk of it.
There you go. Yeah, and you did most of your mobile stuff was at Backflip, right?
Correct.
In Boulder, yeah.
Yeah, I was there for on and off for about a year doing ad animation stuff, little 30-second and less bits, either repurposing or coming up with new animations with existing assets.
Interesting.
That was pretty early on career stuff.
Yeah. And nowadays, what kind of tools do you use mostly when you're animating for?
It's all Maya.
It's all Maya.
Yeah.
Interesting. For anyone unfamiliar, Maya is a 3D animation program. You can also do 3D art in Maya as well, right?
Yeah, it's a pretty much complete package. It's one of the originals. It's been around since I was a kid.
Yeah. So you're not really interacting with the engines almost at all then, right? You're just sending stuff from Maya and then they're importing it into whatever engines they're using?
It's a little more involved where I am now. I'm exporting FBXs and bringing those into Unreal and all that kind of stuff, which is a new territory for me. So I'm learning a little bit more there.
Nice.
Just making sure that things are working and implemented and all that stuff. And if not, some tech animator will come and yell at me. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Well, now we've got all the technical stuff out of the way. Anthony, what fun questions?
No, man, I have so many questions.
I'm ready. Give it to us.
You said some interesting stuff, Alex, that I wanted to pick your brain on. So you said you started with mobile stuff. Now you're working in non-mobile world. Is that too much to say? I know it's a secret project, but
I mean,
okay.
Yeah. You've seen like Outriders and all that stuff. So it's you can assume the caliber, I'm sure. So
okay, right on. So I wanted to know what's one of the biggest differences. I have my hunch, but is one harder than the other? Design, like making animations for mobile. From my perspective, making animations for mobile, you get maybe some benefit on it doesn't need to be super perfect because the views may be kind of far from whatever you're observing, maybe depending on the situation. I kind of thinking like an isometric kind of view thing, but at the same time, your animations also maybe have to be more expressive because of that, right? Then on the other hand, when you have something like, I'm just saying along the lines of Outriders, right? You're closer to the action, and so to maybe some extent the fidelity needs to be better, or at least the expectation of what that animation is going to be needs to be better. I don't know what in your experience so far, which one have you found to be more challenging?
that's a good point. I mean, that's something that a lot of animators across different kinds of games will talk about. And there's a ongoing Riot animator team, I think is what they call them. They call themselves Rats. Um, they do Twitch streams and they talk about animation. And then there's things like Anim State, where it's kind of like a yearly expo for game animators. They talk about there's been talks about how animating to something like Heroes of the Storm or League is completely different from a third person action game or an isometric game, any of those, where like you're really focusing on what you're seeing as a player and how that's coming across. Um, in particular for a mobile game, that's totally something that you would factor in. Is like, okay, people are looking on a screen, about this big. They're trying to figure out what's the most important thing to come across there versus, oh, I can just kind of get this angle in, uh, Horizon Zero Dawn. You can kind of pick any angle that you would want to see what a robot or Aloy would look like.
Right.
Yeah. You have a lot more flexibility, I guess, when you're in these like first person or third person games to see whatever you want to see, whereas in the mobile games you're much more constrained.
Very much so. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Now I was interested a little bit in the origin of your journey. Like, why did you decide to get into animation? Because some streams I've watched of animators, the way I would describe it seems like complicated vertex babysitting. Like you're kind of like pushing vertices around frame to frame. I do video editing now, and sometimes if you want to do some animations, between this is like BS, not meaningless, like little stuff, but it's so tedious, sometimes. Like I might want to interpolate this thing from here to here, but at this frame it kind of looks like shit, so I need to like review all the frames and push it back. And then we watch these streams of some animators on Twitch like doing 3D animations, and it's like, holy shit, there's you said, oh, it's 30-second ads, and I thought in my head, shit, I bet you it's still a bunch of work to do 30-second ads. Like it seems like a lot of work to do some good animations. What inspired you to get in there?
I mean, I've been animating since I was a kid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I was doing claymations when I was probably 11, 12. I had like my dad's first digital camera and was just doing those. They were
Sweet.
awful, terrible, but like it was enough. I think I did some stuff in PowerPoint even where I just like hold down spacebar and it would go through every frame like super fast.
It'd be like a PowerPoint flip book.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's
like
amazing.
that kind of thing.
That's really what? Why do you like that?
I mean, when I was
so
that
much
old, I
work.
had no idea. I obviously discovered Flash pretty early on in there. I think I got Flash. What was it? Flash MX 2004 for my 13th birthday or something like that.
Okay.
I don't know what 13-year-olds are asking for software from their parents. And obviously, like Flash cartoons were a huge inspiration. I just wanted to do those big stick fights, all that kind of stuff.
Well, I remember
that kinda
stick
just
fights. Those
spiraled
were
on
so
from there.
cool. I loved watching those stick fights. Did you make any?
None that you would have seen.
We can't go to your Newgrounds account and check out some animations.
I don't even know if there's anything on there. I don't even remember what my Newgrounds username was.
Was the interest in and some of the things you're telling here like more the animation was the means to tell the story? Like, was it more about the story you could tell, or was it also like literally the fascination of the execution?
Anthony
of it,
cannot fathom that you would enjoy moving stuff around frame by frame.
I think there's an opportunity here for me to listen to somebody with like a different kind of brain, like.
That makes sense. I probably more the execution of it. I don't know.
Interesting. Wow.
I've never been like hyper creative in the story or design kind of side of things. More like technical and like I like the craft of this.
Okay.
And to clear it up a little bit, like I don't know what streams you're watching where someone's animating on a vertex level, but it's like in 3D animation, it tends to be just like a control that's going to move your forearm like you would expect or your arm like you would expect, and interacting it with that way. I can't imagine pulling vertices.
You've got the whole skeleton and all
first
that.
3D animation was done, but definitely not
These
now.
these people were doing something. The particular situation I was thinking of, I can't remember the term for it. You can probably tell me. It's like when your animation causes clipping in the like materials and textures of like maybe the asset that's being animated. So
Mm-hmm.
they were just like doing some fine touches of things to make sure it didn't clip. I can't. There's a name for it, but I can't remember what it was called. He said, but anyway.
I mean, he could have been rigging it where he's like working with his skinning.
Oh
'Cause,
yeah,
like,
it might have been skinning. Yeah, now that you say that, like that's the related term. How does that workflow usually go when you're like, what do you animate? Does the art team give you like a 3D model to animate? You animate it, then they throw the materials and textures on it because like you might have a situation. I'm thinking like Outriders or games like it where you have like cosmetics that people can use, and you very often, right? Like you're gonna get cosmetics added after the animations were made. So like,
mm-hmm.
how does that workflow go between
Yeah.
you and like the art team?
And I guess you could talk Dauntless too if you can't get into too many people.
Yeah,
Can
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean,
No,
obviously
yeah.
I can't talk about
Whatever,
anything
whatever.
really what I'm doing, but
Yeah.
that was something we had to think about with Dauntless a lot. I did a number of player animations for little bits of either mocap cleanup or otherwise. And it was something you had to think about because most of the time we're animating a if we're animating a character, it's basically like a naked dude or girl that's
Mhm.
just doing the animation, and then all that stuff is layered on. Um, but we would test that when we were working on stuff for Dauntless, where it's like, okay, how does this look with a thicker armor set? Oh, there's a lot of clipping here. We might have to pull these arms out a little bit. Ride that line between where it looks awkward without anything on and
Mhm.
doesn't clip when a bunch of stuff is on.
Mhm.
As far as the pipeline, I mean, like you guys know, game development is like so nuts as far as how many cooks are in the kitchen. So animation tends to come pretty late in the pipeline in that regard because you have your concepts that go to a 3D artist who hands that off to a character rigger who puts the bones in and the controls in, and then that's handed off to us. I mean, there's just so many steps there. So if any step happens to change, it has to reflect down the entire chain. So there are times where animators will be like, okay, we have this animation set, it's done. Oh, we tweaked his leg to be a little longer. Okay, that may have messed up everything. Hopefully we can fix that because that definitely happened. I worked on mostly on behemoths in Dauntless, and sometimes you get a big change on the scale of a creature even that would be like, all right,
Yeah.
well, that metric for how fast he's running, it's a little different now. We have to change the entire thing for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
So I figured it was like potentially pretty messy. That's what I assumed. But there's
Game
some things.
development is messy.
Yes. It's
For sure.
it's so much more creative, I think, than some people take it for. Like of a creative endeavor.
Yeah,
And thus,
speaking of creativity, like when you are given an animation to do, how much freedom do you have in this animation process? Like, do they just like say, "We want this thing to roar," and that's like all they say, and you just like decide, or are they like, "We want it to move in these ways. We kind of want it to do that." Like, how step by step is what they're telling you as far as like how much freedom do you have in
does it
designing, putting your
vary?
own taste in
Yeah.
it or whatever?
Yeah.
That really varies. I mean, that varies project to project. Like I worked mostly on Dauntless when I was um, at my last studio. Um, but that varies with the project, that varies with the lead you have, or principal animator, whoever. Because sometimes they'll just kind of throw it to you and be like, all right, it's an attack. It uses, left arm, whatever. Go nuts. Or sometimes it's like, this is very specific and it needs to be this. Um, I think a mark of a good lead or otherwise is someone who can give you the bare bones and then kind of I guess just give you freedom where you're allowed to. Um, a lot of the times we'll push something really far and then rein it back in because it's easier to do it that way than it is opposite. a lot of the time.
Right. Make it ridiculous and then like
Yeah.
tone it back. I see.
Like I've had more freedom with I mean, not surprisingly, pre-production stuff. I think I don't know what Dauntless is doing now because it's been so long since I've worked on it. But I remember I worked on one of the ice ice behemoths in some form in a cave, and Phoenix Labs was like, "Hey, if you guys want to previs any attacks or otherwise for this creature, go nuts." So I opened up Blender for that actually because I do all my 2D animation in there, and like sketched him running up on the walls and jumping up on a ceiling and knocking down a bunch of icicles and stuff. And I think they ended up really liking that, and that getting handed off to our team as something to
Interesting.
do.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you had the opportunity to like design the concepts for the animation in that situation.
In that situation, yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Is that your favorite when you get that kind of freedom? Like, is that the best case scenario or?
I think so. I mean, it kind of depends. Like, if you can kind of have ownership of it and just like start to finish it, it's a lot of fun. But a lot of times that sometimes isn't the case where like, we'll brainstorm a bunch of stuff, but they might hand it off to someone else. It all just kind of depends on the production.
That's cool.
Yeah, I was going to ask that if it's nicer because I could see a world where I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes it's nice to just be told exactly what to do, you know, and not have to worry about providing some, especially like, I don't know, I would imagine, and I have some questions on this. Like, there are days where you maybe are not as like intrinsically motivated, you know, and might be nicer just to have like, in a sense, a set of check boxes to do, you know.
Totally. No, yeah. Like, I mean, we're all meat sacks with like chemical factories at the top.
Yeah.
So it's like you're not a robot. You're not going to be at 100% every day. And animation lists are totally a thing, especially for games. I mean, with all those behemoths in Dauntless, you know, yeah, there's these cool attacks and roars and all that stuff, but they also have to, you know, turn 45 degrees, turn
Mhm.
90 degrees, turn
And like that those
135 degrees. And
So
those are like
okay.
tedious ones you just got to do, and they have to look good. And then you have to mirror them and all that stuff. So it's like there are times where you can like default to the a little bit more mindless stuff.
I'm curious,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
much work goes into like a turn 45 degrees for some? Is that like a ton of work still?
It depends. I mean, like for a biped, probably not that much. A quadruped, hell yeah.
Sure, I see.
And
I
I've been
see.
animating quadrupeds for the last like 3-4 years, basically.
Okay.
Can you give us a sense of like you pull that I'll ask you about this in a second, but you pull that 45-degree rotation for a quadruped off the animation list from there till like it's accepted. How long you think like how long would that maybe take? Like you can use it an actual experience for like that you had. You don't need to yeah, nail the estimation for everybody in the gaming industry.
I mean, again, that just varies. You know, what your production and approval process is like. You know, what sort of eye for quality your
Yeah,
leads
right.
have, and you know how tight a deadline are you. You know, like does this need to be done this sprint, and you have 2 days left. It really it depends. I mean, I could say like with uh, Dauntless stuff. I had some fantastic leads, and we really tried to push the bar as far as polish that we could. Um, whereas sometimes it's just like, all right, this will work for now. I will revisit it later if I can. It just depends on the production.
So if you were
I know
gonna
that
try and say
tends to
just
be
like,
an answer because there's like no steadfast rules.
what about like just the work you do on it?
Hmm. Uh,
Like days, weeks, months.
Hours? Yeah, like
I mean,
where
for
are we
like
talking?
one turn, I
Yeah.
mean, I can get probably one turn, its mirror, and probably another turn in like a day.
Okay.
Okay.
Which is like an
Depends.
8-hour
Yeah.
day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So you're kind of a beast, is what I just heard.
it depends. Again, we're all meat sacks. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know why I
that's for
can't figure out what to do with
quadrupeds,
this
right?
foot. Yeah, quadrupeds are weird.
So
They're really weird.
bipeds, you basically can animate the whole thing in one day. Every turn on that animation list.
Let's not get carried away.
So you mentioned this animation list. It's actually not something I've really like watched too many GDC videos about. Honestly, I can only get so far the GDC animator like videos, and I'm like, they're getting so they're
Yeah,
getting too technical for me.
They
They're
get pretty
losing me.
technical in those, yeah.
Yeah, and it's not meant
I'm
for
glued
me.
to the
It's
screen
okay.
when I watch those. I'm just like, yes,
The
just
G-
inject it all into my veins. This
for
is
those
this is
who
what I
are
live for.
watching, another vouch for those GDC videos. We tell our community so many times. I mean, I've watched over like 75 or something of them, but the animators, there's a certain point where like I'm just not the target audience,
Yeah, totally.
Anyway, what I was gonna ask, so they create this does the way that you go about executing your what you're doing, like what you're going to work on, is that they create an animation list after creating characters and character rigs, and you kind of get to just choose? Because the reason I'm asking you is there's a animator friend of ours from Halo 343 who was talking
His
about
name's
these like
Will Waltz, if you've heard
Will
of him.
Waltz, yeah. He worked on these assassination animations for Halo 4, and he had it in like his portfolio, and he was saying, I asked him like how long one of those would take, and I can't remember, he said it took like a long time, I remember. But he said they would often leave those things as like treats for themselves to animate like near the end of production when things got crazy, implying that maybe there was some amount of like freedom in choosing what you worked on when, to some extent. Is that true?
um,
Yeah,
Like,
do you
do you
just
go into work and you have a list and you're like, you know what, today I'm doing this one. I feel like it, this one.
I think
Or
I
not
did
really?
I did that a few times. Right now it's like I have complete ownership over a character, so I'm just kind of working on that. But
Oh,
like
that's really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool.
in the past with Dauntless stuff, there are like attacks are always fun. I always really like attacks. And I think it kind of depended on where they were at as far as implementation. Because animation lists are kind of, they tend to, from my limited experience, they tend to be crafted between a designer and generally like an animation lead, someone who's kind of divvying that out to the grunts, as it were. So if production is this far along and they need more basic locomotion than attacks at this point, it kind of isn't in your wheelhouse to really decide at that point,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
So right now, you have. Did they basically just say, "Here's a character. Here's all the things we want it to do. Just go for it," and you basically have a deadline to like complete the entire character's animation set, sort
Kind
of
of,
thing?
it varies week to week, but yeah.
That sounds cool. That sounds like a fun opportunity.
Yeah,
I
it
know
sounds
that
like
happened a lot with Heroes of the Storm League kind
Interesting.
of peeps. There's a lot of times where, at least to my knowledge, because I have a couple of friends at those studios who have said like, yeah, I did this character for the most part. So they were able to kind of own that, which is something that a lot of animators look for when they're at studios. It's like, okay, if I can have ownership over this bit, it allows you to kind of have an identity or put your mark on a game. A
Right,
little
rather
bit
than doing
easier.
like one animation on like 10 different
Yeah,
characters or some
I
shit.
mean,
right.
with Dauntless stuff, there's so many behemoths that we would just divide it across the entire team. So it'd be like, I don't know. I would watch footage of it and see midway through, it's like, oh, I did that one recovery animation right there. And it's so easy to pick out because I stared at it for 2 weeks. But you can't point it out to anyone. It's like, well, I don't understand what I just saw.
Right.
What's
I
happening?
did recovery animation 3. Make sure
Pretty
you
much,
look
yeah.
for it in
It's
the
that level of
yeah.
weirdness.
So, am I hearing correctly that if you want to like break into the gaming industry as an animator, you just sign up as an intern and just say, "I'll do all the turns." You got
If
it.
only were that easy. I don't know.
I had two questions regarding the craftsmanship of animation that I personally have no knowledge about. I was interested to see what you say. Like, in your opinion, what makes a good animation? Are there some like core tenets to a good animation? Like for example, like maybe for a UI element, there's like these, or UX element, there's like being able to understand what's possible with this interface tool, if you will, like what I can do with this button with this slider is one thing. The feedback while I'm doing it is important, and then knowing what just happened after it's completed is important. Like those three things kind of make a good Is there something like that, like for animation, and to you at least?
I mean, you could refer back to uh like core animation principles. I mean, anyone who has even cursory glance looked into animation has probably heard 12 principles, um, which are just like 12 principles of animation that have been established since I don't know, Nine Old Men, very early on
You want to bang a few of
animation
them off?
development.
What kind of stuff
Oh,
is on there?
I don't
Do you
know
have
how
a
many
favorite?
animators
This
can
isn't a quiz.
actually-
Yeah, I'm just curious.
Favorite principle?
on the spot. It'll be difficult to do all of them.
That's
But
okay. Do you have a
there's,
favorite one? Yeah, one you think about more often than any others?
we have what timing, spacing, appeal. Oh God, when you put them all, put me on the spot for it.
It's okay. There's no
impossible.
pressure. I have a sub question to
other
this
stuff.
question. Do you have a what is your favorite video game animations? Like what video game has your favorite animations? Or a few video games where you really love the animation.
Yeah, I was gonna
from
say
them.
1 to 3.
Yeah.
I wanted to know too.
I should've
You
come
watch
better
it, like-
prepared for that.
You can let it tune yourself. It's just like, man, that was some fucking fire animation.
Yeah, or even
right
just
there.
like a moment from a game. It doesn't have to be like a whole game.
I mean, these days I feel like most of the, like the really solid, like appealing animation comes out of a lot of the indie stuff. I mean, you look at Ori, I think has some like phenomenal animation. Their animator actually works all in Blender. He is absolutely nuts. I forgot his name, but if you can find his reel, it is actually damn incredible. And I think it really shows in Ori. Uh, it'll, God,
So these
I'll have to chew on that.
yeah,
while
if
we're
you think of
talking.
something,
That's
just
a
say
tough
it.
one.
But also all these AAA games, because you're saying indie games are really where your animation is impressed. But are you not impressed by like these like God of War, for example, games like that have like
Yes.
all of
Totally.
this deep character animation? Are those not as impressive to you for some reason, or
No,
how do
they
you feel
are.
about that?
It's kind of like how I don't know when you watch Disney or Pixar.
Mhm.
An animator can look at that and tell you why it sticks out so much, but even someone who doesn't animate can watch those and be like, this is like on another level compared to uh your average TV show. I mean, that's production and how much, talent and time is given to that. So that's a big factor in that. But um when you look at a lot of the AAA stuff, it's shifting more and more and more to realism, which isn't a bad thing. Everyone is gonna have to start working with more and more and more mocap data. But it's like bad mocap is so obvious to me, versus a mocap that is used as a base and cleaned up to make look really good.
Huh.
And then animation systems that blend those. So some games are more successful than that than others. But like when I'm looking for your Disney or Pixar level appeal, I tend not to see that in AAA. But I also don't play a ton of AAA
Sure.
games. So
Can you talk a little bit more about mocap? Because I don't think Anthony or I are very familiar with like the prevalence of mocap in animation. Because I don't really know. Is it as prevalent? It sounds like you're saying, at least in AAA, it's very prevalent. Because I assume you can tell the difference between mocap and hand animated, but I don't think I could if you gave me like a quiz.
I can tell the difference between bad mocap. They're like I was just thinking about it. I was watching some Resident Evil playthrough this weekend.
Of the new game.
The new one,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I'm way too much of a wuss to play it, so I'll just watch someone else play it. But I can tell when background characters there was like a cut scene with some of the early Lycans. This is like very early game, where kind of just in the background moving, and it's a little overacted in spots. And then there are other characters that are coming at you with a more subtle approach, and those are probably all mocap, but the subtle one comes across, I think, a little bit better. My partner and I, we were playing It Takes Two.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's an example of bad mocap because
Really,
it's
you're
just
not a fan of the
everything is
animation?
super overacted, and they're constantly just flailing around as they're talking, which I guess you kind of have to do when you're a pair of dolls, but it's kind of just there all the time, and it kind of takes you out a little bit.
Huh.
At least
So
it did for me.
right. So for you, the animation in that game was not good. And so was that like mostly mocap? Do you see that as being like pretty much
In the
90%
cutscenes,
mocap in the cutscenes?
in the cutscenes,
Interesting. I'll
where
have
you
to pay
can
more
tell
attention
in,
because I'm not done yet.
yeah,
I'm in the middle with a friend, so I'll have to watch now and be like, that's the mocap.
there's just so much like it's just a little extra, I feel like. And then
Interesting.
in the game when they're even just like a sprint start, you can tell it's hand animated. All their jumps are hand animated. It's a little bit different. I assume.
I
Like
see.
it's a world of difference between
Yeah.
the two.
So when you get when you get an assignment and you're like, oh, it's mocap, is that how you do? You like sigh and you're like, I don't want to do this? No, it's not that.
Fine.
Okay.
A lot of the player stuff I did for Dauntless was with a mocap base.
How does that
Um,
work? How do you like animate with a mocap base? Like, are you just given like pre-animations basically that are already there, and then you like just fix them up, or how's the
Kind of.
process work?
Like it's I mean, basic levels of animation. Everything's based in keyframes. So it's all mocap data tends to just be very dense data. So it's just like every frame, every bit of the body has keyframe data on it. So
Nice.
it's a lot going on there.
That's
And you
babysitting
can either
purposes
kind of
right
like
there.
smooth it out or break away parts, depending on the how advanced the animation system is or the mocap system is. Sometimes you'll get really weird pops and jank bits. Sometimes the feet won't bend because the suit wasn't meant for it. We're seeing more and more that mocap tech is getting really, 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 really far. I mean, like Last of Us 2 is all mocap. And that's really probably one of the most advanced systems I would be willing to bet. Um, the how much you're messing with it though is like there's so many approaches. You can like layer on top of it, you can blow it away, you can smooth it, all that stuff.
Do you feel like your
Interest-
job is threatened by the existence of mocap, like that
Not at
it'll
all.
like replace animators? No, it's not a concern.
'Cause, like real life, even if it was one to one, real life isn't as interesting in the motion. Like I mean, even just like take like a baseball pitch or something. It's even if you had perfect mocap data of it, when you get it into an engine, it tends to feel stiff. Like always.
Mm.
Like good mocap data is always touched by an animator in some format, even if it's like exaggerating the timing in one aspect or stretching it a little bit or just something to make it feel better, feel more realistic, even if it isn't necessarily one to one with real life.
Interesting.
Happens a lot.
Cool.
So in a game like Last of Us 2, where you're observing that it had a mocap system that was really advanced, what is the is the part that makes you inclined to think it's advanced not only that maybe the mocap seems like clean, if you will, but also that it's exaggerated in the right ways to, to get to what you were just saying? Is that what makes it seem advanced? And
Uh,
I'm interested. Who makes those? Who builds the systems that, or who owns the systems that interpolate the
Like, how
mocap
do they get the
into?
mocap data? Basically, is what you're
Yeah,
saying.
is that something that studios make? Or is there like a kind of, is there software that the kind of industry wide prevalent for like parsing out mocap data or something?
Or do you like hire a
I mean,
mocap contractor or
yeah,
some shit? Like,
the middle, like as far as the how it's going from mocap to
Yeah, like the dudes are in the little suits with the little poofs, and they're
yeah,
moving
pretty much.
around, and that data's captured somehow, and then it's extrapolated, I'm sorry, into the keyframes like that you're seeing with all
Mhm.
that. So like are the studios the ones that are building that parsing of the data into keyframes, or
I'd wager most of that is going through Motion Builder. Again,
motion builder? Okay.
all
Interesting.
everything I'm saying is just within
No, sure.
my
Yeah, yeah,
my
yeah. No, no,
experience.
absolutely. Yeah.
Motion Builder tends to be a little bit more mocap focused. I think it's also Autodesk, but that's like
Gotcha.
where the bulk of mocap data that I've seen is existing in. I don't know if the whatever mocap tech they're using is going straight into Mobu or not,
Mhm.
but that's where the bulk of it
Cool.
tends to come to.
Now, staying on the Last of Us Naughty Dog line, do you is there a studio in your head that you think just is like the best at animating? Obviously, within the not necessarily like they're the best at every kind of animation, but for like the kinds of stuff they do, they just do it the best than their peers in that category. You just think they're the best,
Hmm.
or animator maybe. I like relative
Well,
to
you already
his
mentioned the
peers.
Ori
The
animator, but
Ori guy, right?
Ori guy's really great. I think Valve still knocks out of the park. I mean, with like, I don't
interesting.
even play Dota, dude. But Dota animators are a league above. They are nuts, and Riot too, for that matter. It's Riot, Blizzard, and Valve tend to just really hire the best. Whether or not their hiring practices are great, well, who knows? But I think Dota. Every time I've seen like character breakdowns in that, hell, even Half-Life Alex was really, 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 really nuts. Um, hmm. It's more games that I'm stewing on at this point.
It's really
It's like with
interesting that these games that where you find the best animation are ones where the animation is actually very far away from the player watching it. Like Dota, you're so far away from the characters, and so it seems it's silly. It seems silly, right? That the animations are so good there, and then in these games where you're like right up against the characters, that's not where you're like most impressed by the animation. And maybe that's because it's easier to see the flaws in those
yeah,
scenarios. Or
and like I think right now, at least for me, but this is also leading into the hype of it. I think Strive
oh,
is
Guilty Gear
on another
Strive.
level. Not only because their visuals are next level, but uh, the animations that we've seen from even just a few betas and character trailers and whatnot, characters in that are so good looking.
Yeah.
And in fighting games, like you get is like you get a specified amount of frames for that. That's very very tight knit. You have to make that work in a small bubble.
Interesting. You know, what do you think of Valorant's animations? I know it's a first-person shooter. Big Halo guy. Like from a shooter perspective, I always find the hand animations and little bits of things always interesting. And I don't know. I feel like I observe, as I probably expectedly, that the polish goes up. Every iteration on
Yeah,
those.
yeah,
And
yeah.
is it just that? I don't know that those don't they're not compelling enough like to be interesting to you. It's like, yeah, sure, the animation's cool, but how
No,
many
not at
cool
all,
hand
dude.
animations? Oh, okay, okay.
First person animation is like its own, it could be its own like genre of animation. It's because
Interesting.
it's so focused and it's something you're seeing all the time. Overwatch has some great first person animation. I haven't seen a ton of Valorant to be honest. Um, but from what I have seen, that's nuts. I know like Destiny 2 has some of the best first person animation in the industry. Um, and
Yep.
I've watched like those reload animations on loop because they're just
Yeah, they're so
phenomenal.
satisfying.
They're
Shit,
so good.
man.
They're so good. That I mean, I think was Richard Lico on Destiny 2. I don't remember. Or he used to work at Bungie. He was the head animator. He is the head animator at uh, what's the studio that does Moss? Forgot the name. Um, but I mean, Moss is another one. Uh, speaking of great animation in games, I
What
forgot
game?
the studio for that. Moss. It's
Moss?
a VR game
Oh, interesting.
with the mouse.
Oh, Polyarc.
Polyarc, that's it. I mean,
I've
now
seen
now that
this.
we're
I've
like
seen this
talking
come
about
up.
it, it's just like, all right, Moss is definitely one where it's like the animation is next level, but that's
Hmm.
because Richard Lico is a god.
And that's a
He's
VR game,
really,
right?
really good. As a VR game, yeah.
Interesting.
Um,
I just wonder for like you just brought up the point. There's a couple of animation sets I'm thinking for first person games and third person games
Mhm.
that I feel like you would spend as a studio want to spend more time on, make sure you nail because the player sees them so often. I'm thinking for first person, it's these reloads, it's these idle like kind of mid thing, weapon for the ones I love are the CS:GO and Valorant like knife ones. Like I swear, some people just switch to knives to see that shit. Sometimes, like it's really satisfying. And then for third person, it's the running animations, right? Like you're behind the player and like just what those animations look like from you like you got to nail those. They have to be
Mhm.
pleasant to watch for thousands of hours, right?
Definitely, yeah. That's the
So
right approach to that, and that's the approach that we tend to take.
yeah, those do end up like taking way longer. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, you'll see it too in um, what's the famous like Horizon?
Zero Dawn.
Yeah, people were making fun of the creatures, like the actual animals, because like the fox would basically just do this as it ran across the screen. It would just wobble, and that's kind of probably a technical limitation, but also where they wanted to put their time because Aloy
Right.
has like some amazing traversal animations. But like you're looking at that, and the only time you're looking at foxes is when you're hunting them. Otherwise, it's like, all right, this doesn't need to be the most high
Right.
fidelity animation we've ever seen.
Right. Okay, so there's some amount of correlation there. Interesting. Um, Skylar, were you going to ask a question that I interrupted you on?
No. You're good. You're good.
Okay, so I have a question. What is your favorite thing about working in the gaming industry so far? This doesn't necessarily have to be
Animation
a
related.
like a perk that comes with studios. Like I don't know. I guess maybe let's say maybe all game industry lets you drink beer while at work, and that's great.
Totally
Uh,
untrue.
totally untrue. Yeah, what anything a conference you get to go to, or I don't know anything that strikes you as like this is my favorite part of it. And if it's just I love animation work and I love doing it for games compared to like Pixar, stuff like animated movie kind of things, that's cool too. I accept.
I mean, admittedly, my um, experience in anything other than games is basically none. So that's a hard one for me to call. Like, oh yeah, I like this over
Yeah, sure.
over
Right.
whatever. Uh, but we are working in entertainment, even if it is stressful at times, like any other industry. Um, it is cool to see a product come together. Um, I'm working in Maya, so I get to see sometimes an untextured gray, uh, just naked model that I have to make do all this cool stuff. And then once it's in engine and it's got textures, or like with Dauntless stuff, we'd get these kind of gross looking models, and then a couple months later, after we'd finished up, we'd see it in engine and see people playing it. That's generally where
Yeah.
that payoff tends to come in a little bit more because we can see what our work looks like with that final layer of polish on it, as well as seeing it in the hands of people.
Yeah, that's got to be cool. Like, oh shit, like you said, I worked on that whatever little
That
thing,
one
that
turn
recovery.
animation 3, yeah, that
Oh
guy.
shit, yeah, you're just like
Yeah.
turning your guy a little bit. Okay, well, what's your least favorite part about working in the gaming industry? This could also, kind of be like something you feel like the gaming industry just needs to get their shit together on, maybe too.
I've been pretty lucky in that I haven't had to do a lot of crunch. Um, but that's kind of the obvious one. I have friends that I I mean it's true. I have a lot of friends at other big game studios, either like Sony or Riot or Blizzard, all those places. And there are times where it's like they're working 60+ hour weeks, and it's like, man, I don't want you to be doing this as the regular. Um, I mean, there's so much talk about game workers unite and unionizing and all that stuff. I think there just needs to be more realization that even though this is a job a lot of people look for and see as a fun thing, which it often is, it's still a job. So it's still like people should recognize that you don't need to dedicate your entire life to your job. You don't need to kill yourself over your job, basically. Crunch culture is a big problem. And I hope that people are starting to recognize it more and more. I again, I've been really lucky that I haven't had to do much of that yet. We'll see if that's in my future, though.
It is if you work for Skylar. She's freaking awful. Slave driver Skylar.
Excuse me.
Okay, no, that's like there's been
Anthony knows
would
I would
say-
rather like throw money in a fireplace than make people crunch.
Yeah. I mean, from our
Anthony would make
perspective-
people crunch for sure, though. That dude.
No,
I
no,
turn off
'cause
Slack. Like,
Anthony's
it gets me
life
through
is
one a
crunch,
day,
so that's
you know?
why Anthony just crunches at it.
I acknowledge though, like I'm wired, I think, a little differently in some ways.
Some people are.
But-
Some people are.
But this is yeah. Do you feel I don't know, from my perspective, I feel like a person can be more creative when they are like happy about their work, when they're not super stressed and overworked. Like,
Yeah. Supergiant is the pinnacle of that, man. I mean, like, Hades and whatnot were made without crunch, with effectively mandated PTO, as I understand it. Like, they forced people to take breaks, which is amazing. It's something that I want to see more of. I don't want people to have to worry about crunch and, oh, can I take care of my family?
Right.
Can I do all this because I have to work
Yep.
60 to 80-hour weeks, whatever.
yep,
totally.
yeah. Okay, cool. I thought so too.
Yeah.
We're on the same page. So, go ahead, Scott.
Yeah. Well, and do you have something along this line, or I was going to change the subject?
No. You can change.
I was just gonna we've talked a lot about animation. Maybe we'll move away from it for a bit. Talk about what are your name your top 3 favorite games ever and why,
Damn. Boom.
or just
Single player.
any
'cause those are
any. Just name three-ish games you really like. They don't have to be your absolute favorites. We won't call whoever developed the other games you don't mention and tell them that you didn't mention them.
Favorite single player game is easily Outer Wilds.
Really? Yeah. Very cool. That's a
And
good game.
favorite multiplayer is Rocket League. Like, I live in Rocket League, dude. Constantly.
Nice.
We the animation team at work, we all play Rocket League, most of us. So when we're not really busy, we'll do pickup games on Fridays, which is a lot of fun.
Oh, that is fun. And then whoever loses has to do the turn animations that week.
If that were the case, then I wouldn't be doing turn animation.
It's true. I imagine you would be near the top of the skill level there.
That was in my interview. I remember mentioning Rocket League, and they were like, "What's your rank?" I was like, at the time, I was Diamond 3. And they're like, "Oh shit, you're higher than us."
That's amazing.
Okay. Those are your favorite single player. Favorite single player was Outer Wilds and Rocket
Everyone should
League.
play Outer Wilds. It's so good. It's so
Not the Outer Wild, right? Not
Outer World.
No, yeah, not Outer World.
Outer Wilds.
Yes,
Mobius Digital.
Outer Wilds, published by Annapurna Entertainment,
Correct.
my
That one,
favorite video
yes.
game publisher.
I have a list of games I need to play, as Skylar was saying beforehand. Not the most culturally diverse,
Gamer.
game player. So
Yeah.
I have to. I'm trying to get break out of my comfort zone a little bit. I used to play a lot more kinds of games before Halo showed up, and then it was just kind of all.
I was very proud that I got Anthony to beat Sayonara Wild Hearts, literally a
did?
2-hour-long
I
game.
Still haven't booted it up. I'm so
Oh
sorry.
yeah, I bought it for Alex. I bought it
for me, and I still haven't booted it up.
What
I
a
need
jerk!
to.
It's okay. Yeah, even Anthony has finished that. That's saying something.
Yeah. Yep. Great. That'd be interesting because that's more those animations.
I love the animation in that game personally.
Yeah, the animation's great, but it's it's kind of almost more cinematic in a lot of ways. It's not like directly tied to gameplay, you know. Skylar, you agree?
At least in the like quick time event parts, yes.
Like yeah, you're like moving on your star. And there's not like a ton of variations there until like you go through a circle and she's like like,
I don't know.
like,
I feel like you
whatever.
need to play it some more, find out, because I
He's
think
trying.
there's a pretty good variation. But we'll see. Alex will be the
It's
judge
really
of that.
nice. I love the game. It's beautiful. It's just it seems more like cinematically animated to me than interactively animated, I guess is the way I'm saying it. But okay, sorry. You continue, Skylar. Just
I didn't.
don't mind me. I'm just writing down that I need to play the Outer Wilds.
No, not the Outer Wilds. Just Outer Wilds.
Outer
There's
Wilds.
no the.
Oh, there's no the. Okay.
You got this. You're good.
It was a very unfortunate time for both of those games to come out.
The crazy bad marketing time.
I told Skylar, I was like, "Oh, you like that game?" He's like, "Yeah, I did." And I was like, "Oh, that's weird because blah blah blah." And he's like, "Oh no, I didn't like that game." I like
Yeah. Do you have any upcoming games you're really looking forward to?
Besides Strive.
I guess Guilty Gear Strive is a good answer. Yeah, me too,
That's
dude.
like number one
Me
right now,
too.
dude. I'm so excited for that. It's what, like a month out? It is
Yeah.
exactly a month out.
Yep. And the beta.
yeah.
Are you gonna play the
this
beta?
weekend.
Yeah.
I used to play
if
the
I have
shit
time.
out of Guilty Gear on PS2.
We gotta get you on that, Anthony. On that Strive life. Yeah.
Strive is the new hotness.
You know what?
It's
There's
great.
something. Oh man, there's something I can say here because. Okay, so in Super Smash Brothers, this relates in my head to Guilty Gear. Okay, in
Mhm.
Super Smash Brothers, Mr. Game and Watch, he's like this old school, and so his animations are like kind of stiff and whatever the
Yeah,
heck.
yeah.
And I feel like that's a big reason why I like playing with him. I feel like I'm not a sweaty Super Smash Brothers player. I'm a fuck around crazy.
He's an
kid, like,
8-player Smash all
with
items.
and
Yeah,
shit,
totally.
But like when I go side A, it's the way he just like is very satisfying, just in a similar way that like the Captain Punch is satisfying. Like it's just like fast, whatever. And Guilty Gear in my head was I liked it when I played it, the old one back in the day. Guilty Gear X maybe was what it was called. I don't remember, but because for the same reason, the animation's
like
like
so many.
like shoot,
Mhm.
shoot. It's like choppy almost, and I think that's really satisfying sometimes. Is that harder to animate?
It's
Or
not.
is that
It's similar from how you're animating even a more refined bit. Because animation is so much more about poses than anything else.
Interesting.
I mean, timing, all this stuff, but like posing is very, very important. So just making sure that the important poses are reading, and in fighting games, that's especially true. That's why, like with Mario's side smash, you recognize his with his hand out, and he's got that like strong pose forward as the fireball in his hand is going off or whatever. That's what you're thinking about more than the wind up, because that pose is what's important. So in something like Guilty Gear X or Plus R, any of the old games, where the sprite work is more limited, they are focusing on those poses and attacks more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay.
Interesting. And yeah, and like Game and Watch, for example, his moves are like all poses, right? There's
Yeah, they're all
almost no
poses.
transition period, so you really
Correct,
get that
yeah.
emphasis on the poses.
Like, everyone
Yeah.
knows what he looks like when he's holding the bucket, or his forward smash, or
Right,
his
right.
trampoline up B, all that stuff.
And yeah, there. I'm right now. I have the 12 principles of animation open in
All right.
front of me, and
Oh, boy.
I'm looking at them and I'm thinking about it. And there's like you're saying, there's a staging principle. I'm thinking maybe
That tends to
stage-
apply more to shows and movies.
Is that
I
setting
guess?
up the setting around an animation, or is that like how you stage the animation within context of the setting, or is it the
It's kind of like
pose?
composition in
Okay.
filmmaking. It's just where characters are on the screen, on your piece of paper, on whatever.
So
You
for
know, like
cutscenes, that would be something that matters, but maybe not
Yeah.
so much for like in gameplay stuff, since you have so much more
Yeah,
freedom.
that's a little harder
Right.
in gameplay. There is really not much staging unless you're. Yeah, I guess that
Yep.
really just comes
Yeah,
down
cutscene
to
maybe.
cutscenes. at that point. Yeah.
Well, the next one is straight ahead action, and pose to pose, kind of
Mhm,
like what
mhm,
you were
mhm.
just talking about. And the subsequent ones are interesting. Follow through and overlapping actions. So
Yep.
this is interesting. This one I want to ask you. So
Okay.
in Halo 5, and the other games have this too, but because I only play Halo, I'm asking about Halo 5. So like you can cancel animations and you can they intentionally allow you to like chain animations, right?
Okay.
So you'll be like in a sprint and you can slide and you like you like smoothly transition into the animation, and they intentionally allow you to like do a jump from there, and they intentionally allow you to do this stabilize thing from there, and you can intentionally kick into a ground pound but then break out by thrusting in this direction. Is that that's kind of stuff seems like it'd be a bitch to smooth out. Is it not like is this
You mean
where the
because there's
anim
like so
state?
many trees of actions that you
Yeah,
could
right.
go into or out of an animation with?
And so like yeah, and how do you like test that? You have somebody just literally just smashing away at shit and making sure it looks good.
I mean, at a certain point, probably, yeah. But that comes down to your animation blending system in general. I don't know what you guys are developing, and if it's
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 unreal.
Unreal. Yeah.
Unreal. Yeah, I mean, Unreal has it. Unity has it. You have your uh, animation blueprints.
Like
This is
blend
this is
nodes.
where
Yeah,
yeah,
animation
Mhm.
blueprints. Yeah, and then you have like
where we're
blend
getting
nodes.
into where
Yep, yep,
I'm
yep.
I'm less versed, but I know basically how it's working.
Yep.
So in scenarios like that has become more and more advanced as time has gone on. Um, in
'Cause-
some older games, you'll notice like a character will always have to go back to this one pose before they go
Mhm.
into another. Uh, that's becoming less and less of a thing because engines are smart and know, okay, feet, these are feet. This is the core of the body. These things can move in this way. Um, and generally, the more you hand that off to your animation system and less the uh, animator, generally, the more noticeable it becomes.
Mhm.
So for something like what you were saying with Halo, uh, they're running forward and then they go into a slide animation. The run to slide is a separate animation. You'll have the looping running animation. You'll have the running animation into slide, and then probably a slide into stand up. At that point, uh, where those transitions happen depends on the engine, and oftentimes it's like, okay, I want to blend out of the run cycle into the slide on the front left or front right foot, and that's handed into the engine at some point, some value. That's where I'm less
Mhm.
familiar.
Mhm.
That's where I
Mhm.
tend to get told, okay, left foot forward for this one. Um, but if you were to just do the running animation into the sliding bit completely with the animation system, it would probably not know what to do. Like the torso might just kind of unnaturally blend before it's lowered. It all
Okay.
kind of depends.
Interesting.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, because the overlapping action being there. Follow through is one of the things that makes me feel like makes an animation juicy to me. I think like when you get like a good punch and like the momentum like carries through. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking that Mario punch, or whatever. Um, that's also though in that case you might have interacting animations, right? Like
Mhm.
how tough is that? Like I
Like
punch,
between two characters.
right? Because like
Yeah.
Mario
Sync
punches.
animation. Yeah, it's the whole thing.
What are they
Although
called?
in the case of Smash, that's a little different because that's based in hitboxes.
Okay.
Fighting games in general, there are areas that'll hurt, and you'll have hurt animations.
That's
Um,
fair. Those systems are a lot more like concretely and finitely defined than in
yeah,
other
yeah,
games.
and you don't tend to notice that in fighting games as much. You're just like, if it, if a punch doesn't line up perfectly with, um, Soul Bad Guy's chest, and he has the same generic hurt animation, you don't notice because you're just playing
Right.
and
It's
you're
so
like more
fast.
worried about it. Yeah. Um, but an animation where uh, like Dauntless. I'll just go back to that.
Yeah.
Where you mount a behemoth. That's a requirement between both animations, or something needs to be done there to make those work. I don't know if that makes sense.
No,
Yeah,
it
no, it
totally
does.
does. Yeah,
It
so
does.
like
follow through in general, like I immediately thought about I guess I just had baseball in the brain. Like if you watched a batter step up to plate and stop his momentum completely the second that he hits the ball, that would look weird as hell. Like follow
Right.
through is so important.
Yep.
Not only because it reflects reality, but it makes things look better in general. Just having physics actually make sense, carry through emotion.
Yeah, I know Skylar wanted to get away from animation. I'm sorry, but one principle I'm interested in
you're
is
good. This is great.
is exaggeration is one
Yeah.
of the principles. Exaggeration, and would you say in games like I was saying about like the games that you're kind of far away from, mobile or Dota, League, you're kind of far. Exaggeration's important to like be able to read the animations and to make them more compelling and stuff. Which is generally speaking, you're kind of going for more exaggeration, or obviously, like it would depend. Like you were saying that Resident Evil example, where the people were like you maybe don't want to be crazy exaggerated there.
Yeah. It all depends. I keep saying it depends, but it does.
But it does, yeah.
You think
That's fair.
about what was it? Is it Jack and Daxter? Like the first one? I think it's Jack and Daxter. On the jump animations, you'll see his torso completely stretch. And you don't really question it. It just looks kind of cartoony, but it makes sense on a physics level. Just there's this huge separation, and it just feels good. Like exaggeration tends to be more in that realm than anything. And things like Dota, uh, you want your cast on a caster to read. So maybe it's they might stretch out a little bit when they do it, or they might fudge the perspective to work a little better from up on high.
Okay.
Both kind of
Interesting. Yeah.
Um
Okay.
okay. Now I'm going to ask you the most important question that I ask every human in the world to determine their worth as a human.
Mhm.
And there's two questions are what's your favorite food and what's your favorite animal?
Does it have to be like a specific, or can it be a region?
I could be regional, yeah, that's fine.
Probably Indian food.
Do you have a favorite Indian dish or like one you'd crave right now?
I don't know. It's hard to beat, man. I don't know. I'm a vegetarian, so like it makes a lot of sense for me. Just everything is
Yeah.
very accessible for
Sag
me.
paneer? Are you a sag paneer fan? I love
I
sag
get
paneer.
down on some sag paneer.
Hell yeah. All right, that's good.
I do not think I ever had sag paneer.
It's like spinach curry with Indian cheese in it, basically.
It's really good.
Yeah.
And probably sea turtles.
Turtles? Sea turtles?
Sea turtle.
Hey, that's a good answer. I like that. Have you ever been to the Denver Zoo where they have that enormous snapping turtle? That's like 90 plus years old.
Next to the Denver Zoo, actually, like within a couple blocks.
Yeah, he's in Tropical Discovery. He's like at the very end.
Yeah.
I remember that dude.
Damn, dude, that looks. I'll take your guys' word for the sag paneer stuff.
It looks kind of intense, I will say. Like that visually, it's not the most appealing food in the world. But I think a lot of Indian food is honestly not that visually. Like Indian food is not about being visually appealing.
Curry looks pretty good.
It kind of just looks like mush, but I think it tastes amazing.
It kind of does. It kind of does. You're right. Yes.
Yeah, it's no like
is the way to go. I don't know. I really.
Aloo
like
gobi, really? Okay. Chickpeas. Is aloo gobi a chickpea one?
Cauliflower and potato.
Oh, that's the cauliflower one. Okay. Yeah. All right, I gotta get some aloo gobi.
That looks pretty good.
Anthony is like the most meat eater in the world. So like,
I know.
if we get Anthony to like a vegetarian dish, it'll be like sacrilege. That would be.
No, you know what I've been. Yeah, I don't. I love meat because I love meat. I don't like. I have nothing against. Impossible stuff actually has tasted quite great to me.
I've questioned it as I've had it before. I've been like,
yeah,
really. There's no way.
That's some solid shit. The other one that I've been having recently, it's like vegetarian chicken patty, but it fucking tastes like a chicken patty. And you even throw some like they have like a little buffalo crispiness sauceness to the crust. It's all vegetarian. Costco sells it. I have it for
Ooh.
breakfast. You know, as a sandwich. It makes me feel like I'm having Chick-fil-A healthy for breakfast.
Non-homophobic, non-meat
Yeah,
eating
totally.
breakfast right there. Amazing.
It's
I'll have
like
to look next time I'm at Costco.
Yeah, that sounds
it's
awesome.
good. It's good stuff. Okay.
Your turn, Anthony. You want to go another fun question?
Yeah, this is. I know. I don't know. I should maybe be careful here because I always say I know the answer to this question, and like I'm surprised every now and then. But I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this question. If you, Alex, could only allow one of these foods to exist, the other one never existed.
Oh, Jesus.
You never tried it. You never get to try it or nothing ever. It never exists. It never exists in the future. It never existed before. Would you choose pizza or burgers?
I think you know the answer there. Then for me.
Okay, pizza. I'll give that one to you. I just didn't know. I was like, man, what if he
It's
says
like
like
I don't have
Impossible
much
Burger?
attachment to burgers at
Sure.
this point.
Are you
know?
a pizza fan though? Well, do you eat?
Oh,
You
yeah.
eat cheese, I'm assuming, right? You're not vegan.
Yeah.
Okay, so pizza is an easy win there then.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you. I'll let you pass.
I
on
think
this
you're the
one,
first
Alex.
vegetarian we've had answer that question. Normally, Anthony
Yeah,
gives
yeah,
people
that's a-
shit if they don't pick burgers, but for
Yeah,
you, yeah, you got an easy excuse.
Right on. I think I actually have done a pretty good job asking all the questions. I think the last one maybe I'd ask you because some people actually did ping us on Instagram and talking about how they were interested in maybe getting into animation or
Yeah.
design, like 3D design related things. What would be your advice to them? Let's say you've mentioned Maya, you've mentioned Blender. Like, what would be the plan of action you'd recommend to them if they wanted to work in gaming animation when they in the future?
There's a million resources out there. The there's so many online animation schools. Which like I'm an oddball in that I have a degree from CU. I went to regular school just by doing animation stuff. And then I kind of pivoted back towards animation.
Your
And I did that
degree is
by
in animation?
no, my degree's in Japanese.
Okay,
I
perfect.
went to an online animation school. I just found one.
Okay.
There's a bunch. There's iAnimate, Anim School. I went to CGtarian. I don't even know if they're still around. It all kind of depends. Some are accredited. Some are kind of just like you're going and taking a woodshop class, except it's animation. It all depends on what you're looking for. I don't think art school is really that great anymore. I don't think any professional artist would recommend it.
Interesting.
So like if you want to go to a school, or take classes, online animation schools are the way to go. In particular for software, Maya is industry standard. I have a lot of problems with Maya. It's not the greatest, but it's got a lot of customizability. So tools are very easy to create for it, and there's a lot of great tools out there already. Blender's free. It's getting better and better. Its animation tools are sadly kind of like one of its weakest parts, unfortunately. But you can do it. I mean, like I mentioned
Blender's
earlier.
intimidating as fuck, dude. Like,
Well, the new
I-
Blender is much better to work with.
Really? Okay.
I think CG Boost has a great Blender starter course. They have a free one and they have like a $60 one. The $60 one is amazing. I learned pretty much everything I know for Blender in that one course. But you can do it. I know, like I mentioned, the guy at Moon who does all of his stuff in Blender.
Mhm.
In relation to games, there is who's the artist or author? There's the Game Anim book, Video Game Animation Explained. Who is it? It's Jonathan Cooper, who is a legend in the industry. That's all related to video game animation. There's a lot of resources out there. I think
Okay.
that's kind of the biggest, but really, like with the courses that are online, you get you get what you put into them. So, I had already finished my degree when I went to an online animation school, and I just dedicated myself to it. Because I was like out of school, I was working coffee, and I was like, I just want to do animation. So like, don't just like fuck around with it. Ask questions, do the best work you can. Um, Pick teachers that have like either are reviewed as really really good teachers or are like industry vets. Um, I think because you'll get the most out of that. Um, those are I don't know, kind of the big ones, but yeah.
Is like creating a portfolio a good idea if you want to get an animation?
Yeah, I mean it's absolutely necessary. There's I mean like you have as a software engineer, you have your resume.
Right.
And you'll have a resume as an animator, but your demo reel speaks volumes. So
Right.
like I mean, if you, a plug, I guess, but like if you really want to see what a reel looks like, the reel that got me the job I have now is at alexbing.com. Just links to my Vimeo. It's just like a polished reel of your best work, um, that can show a potential employer, hey, I know how to do this. And there's a million guides out there too on how to cater a reel to a specific place or
Interesting.
what are the best practices and best kinds of things to throw in there. It's a little targeted. I mean, mine's all creature animation. I think there's a few player animations from Dauntless in there, but that process in its own is like an art form.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Cool.
Awesome. I think that's great advice.
Yeah, that is great information.
I was, you stayed away from Blender, and I was like, yes, fine. Like everyone's so everyone in the industry is like, Blender's so great, it's free, whatever. And I'm like, but it's fucking so intimidating. Its UI is like crazy. It's like everyone actually loves this shit. Like, what's going on?
It's pretty great. I do all my stuff that isn't animation in it, honestly. Like, so if I'm doing
isn't
personal work,
animation. Okay.
yeah, I will do all of that in there. I'm probably more likely if I like to do it if I'm going to do an animation personal work, I'll do it in Maya and then export in Alembic,
Okay.
and just retexture it in Blender because their UV editor kind of sucks, but everything else in it and its visuals make a lot more sense. Maya, if I could not use Maya, that'd be great, but it's unfortunately like what my entire workflow is based in, and most animators.
Interesting.
It could be better.
Alas. And for what it's worth, I use Blender 2.7. I think they have a newer version.
Then yeah, you should hop on the 2.9 or 2.8.
Yeah, get on that
I think
2.9
It's a
train.
different world.
I think
It's
it's
a very
not a
different world.
shit.
Yeah,
It's very
okay.
good. Yeah,
All
I
right.
remember it's. Yeah, I remember trying to do early Blender when I was in high school, and I'm like, this is fucking weird, dude. I don't want to do this. But it's way more natural and a little more industry friendly now.
Cool.
All right, one more fun question, then we're calling it.
Yep.
Calling it a podcast. I was curious. Anthony and I are very into music. We're big music people. And I'm just curious, do you have a favorite video game soundtrack? Or just music from a game you really like?
Outer Wilds has a great soundtrack, but I think Hollow Knight might be my favorite.
Hollow Knight has
Ooh,
great music.
Is Marcus in chat? Marcus would be like, yes, someone finally said Hollow Knight.
Dude, Hollow Knight is like
Fucking
one of the
always-
best games ever. Where the fuck is Silksong? They're working hard on it. They're a small team.
Right
yeah.
on. Okay.
Hollow Knight's
I've
got killer animation.
heard like
Or, I mean,
one song
killer
from Hollow Knight.
music.
Nice.
It's also a very good game.
Josh
Hollow
said
Knight.
Hollow Knight, all caps, so we're good. All right, Anthony. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Alex. We really appreciate it. It was great.
My pleasure, man. Thanks for having me.
Maybe once your unannounced IP is actually announced, we'll have you back
that would
on
be
and you
really
can
cool.
talk. And if we can, maybe once we have a chance to see whatever you have ended up animating and actually look at it, we can have a really cool conversation about more specifically that exact thing. I think that would be really.
It'll all be a ways.
I'm sure it's not
obviously
that
everything I say
close.
is
Yeah.
just
Considering
my
they
perspective.
literally just released the game a month ago, I'm sure we're not that close.
I'll download it. I'll do all the turns, man. 45 degrees, 135.
We'll just start a series where I teach you how to do 45-degree turns and nothing else.
Yes, perfect.
How to be a pro animator with Alex Bing. I can't wait for the YouTube series. So Alex, do you have any place that you'd want to send people? AlexBing.com. You reference are you not too
That
active on
works.
social?
I mean, like, yeah, you
Dude,
could.
you should put some
my
shit
email
on
is up there.
TikTok. People will love your animations. The kids love that shit. Yeah.
My email's on my Vimeo, just at
Okay, cool.
alexbing.com. If you really want to, you could poke me on Twitter. I think I'm
Hazy Hops.
I think
I
I'm Hazy
got you,
Hops on
man.
there. Shows how much I'm on Twitter. I'll check it for the next little while. If anyone has any questions, I can try and point you towards resources. But
Right on.
again, this is all with me. Big asterisk of 5 years in industry. I'm not a vet. And this is just one perspective. So
Sure.
I thought
That's great.
all of the advice given today was very sound, very, very solid, like very considerate of all angles. Very well represented right there, Alex. You did a great job.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Animation was great.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for coming on, man.
Yeah. And where can people find us if they want to find us in?
If you want to find us who know nothing about animations, you can find us at koalaentertainment.com. There you find links to all our social media. Most importantly, our Discord. If you're listening to this right now, we are about to do some giveaways that if you were in our Discord, you would have known about. So sucks for you, but next time you can be part of it. Also, you can meet all these cool people who pass by through here in our Discord, and very, very importantly, get some details about our upcoming game. And good God, to the people who are listening right now, you need to be ready, okay? That's all I'm going to say. Be ready. Discord's the place to be. There's some big shit coming. Be ready, fans. So anyway, Discord's the place to be. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for all the support from the patrons. Patrons actually did have a Koala Time question. Do we want to answer it with Alex? Do we want to put it on till next time? We have like 3.
Maybe we wait since this one was long. Do we have like a really fast one we can do that's just goofy?
I actually, it would be funny to have the patrons ask a question Alex answers.
That's what I was saying. Do we have a goofy one? We don't have any goofy ones. Let's save it for next week, I think, when we have more.
Damn. We almost had one. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Until next time.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Talk to you later. Thanks again, Alex.